Hi everyone, Jennifer here. Welcome to part 3 of the Mapp and Lucia book club. And today I'm going to be answering your comments, your questions, sharing your observations in this video. A few weeks after I announced the book club, I put up a video saying, please share your observations. And so that's what I'm going to be doing today. I have a lot of them. I won't be able to get to all of them, and I apologize for that, but I'm going to get to some of the top ones that I thought would make good discussion points. Okay, so I have my cup of coffee right here, and let's get right into it. Picks Over Peas writes, I have finished Queen Lucia and I'm almost finished reading Miss Mapp. One thing that struck me was how we as humans seem to end up with certain roles in our little social circles. And when one person's role or situation changes, everyone else tries to figure out how to act. Okay, that was the first part of her comment. And I love that. That is so true. And when I wrote Polish Your Poise with Madame Chic, I wrote about that because as we try to develop poise in our life, let's say we've never had it before, or our family doesn't have it, our friends don't have it, it's not anything that anybody around you is interested in. Well, when you try to cultivate poise for yourself, you are going to get probably some blowback from people who are saying, who do you think you are? Or maybe talking behind your back, or just saying little snide comments, or maybe people who are just curious as to what you're doing, what changes you're making in your life. So I thought Picks Over Peas observation here was really spot on. So she's, in Queen Lucia and Miss Mapp, everybody has their roles. And, Queen Lucia is the self-professed queen bee of Rhythm, and Miss Mapp she thinks that she is that of Tilling. And you have this in schools, for example, little groups of students, and one of them will be the most popular. And then there's the people who fall in line, and there's all these strange social structures in schools where children, have that around them a lot. So that's absolutely true. Everybody has a role in society. Now, it's when you choose to break out of your role and change your life for the better that interesting things start to happen. So I think that definitely with with Lucia, it says there's some backstory about her and her husband, and it seems that they are a bit nouveau riche. Mr. and Mrs. Lucas are. That they didn't always grow up with such wealth. I think that he had some success in his business, and so that's why they were able to buy up. I think they bought up a bunch of little houses, and they put them together to create the Hearst, the house that they live in now. So she was climbing the ladder a bit in society, and all of the things like speaking Italian and playing the piano and being at the head of the art scene and wanting the guru and all of this stuff were just Lucia's ways of asserting herself in society and making herself prominent. Maybe she's a bit insecure about her past, I'm not sure. With Miss Mapp, it states in the book that Miss Mapp came from a quote-unquote good family. So Miss Mapp probably always grew up with, they're not nouveau riche, basically is what I'm trying to say. So she has a different sort of persona to her, a different calm assuredness and self-righteousness, I guess you could say. So it's interesting because Lucia, she does want to make herself more poised, more classy and everything. I think she goes about it the wrong way in doing so. Same with Hyacinth Bouquet, as we compared both of them. But yes, I think that I've always mentioned that to people, that when they decide to embark on a road of cultivating poise in their life, get ready, because people will definitely notice, and you will get some haters and you'll get people who are supportive, and you just pay no mind to anybody. You just keep going on your path. And the important thing is to not do things for pretense or for show, which we'll get to later because somebody else mentioned that in the comment. Okay, so another part of Picks Over Peas message was, another thing that came to my attention was how I get annoyed with some of the personality characteristics of both the main characters, but then realize I have the tendency to some of the same thoughts and behaviors. Overall, what came up the most for me is how human behavior in small social groups has probably taken on similar patterns for centuries. There are always those who want to be more popular, and there are always those who want someone to follow behind, etc. Thank you for spotlighting these books. I'm thoroughly enjoying them. So I thought that that was very astute as well, how she said she was getting annoyed with the personality characteristics of both of the main characters, but then realizes that she has the same tendencies. And that's what I was realizing as well when I gave my example of beefing up my resume, saying that I could sew better than I could, or pretending that I could do that. You know, you could get annoyed at Lucia and roll your eyes at her for pretending to speak Italian. But I think everybody, we just have this as humans, you know, this nature where we want to impress people. We always want to be the best. We don't want to admit our failures and our faults and everything. So we just build ourselves up. And so I think it's so wise to just realize, you know what, when you are reading a book like this and you have a character who has all these problems with them and you get annoyed with them, it's very good to think, do I ever do that? You know, be self-reflective as well. And some of these characters can do appalling things and you can laugh at them thinking, oh my gosh, how could they possibly do that? But do you ever do something like that? You know, that's a good question. And the last part of hers about how human behavior in small social groups has taken on the same pattern for decades. And that's true, just like I mentioned with school settings. I remember when I was at school, there were the popular girls, and then there were the ones that were kind of like their minions and followed them. And in every little group, whether it was in band or in cheerleading or in drama, there was always those queen bees, those popular people. Oh, stresses me out thinking about that. Glad I'm not in that anymore. So yes, thank you, Pics Over Peas. I thought you had a great comment, some great observations. Okay, so next, Ms. Morbier writes, "Hi Jennifer, I've been looking forward to this book club and have just finished reading both books. I enjoyed the character development, charming small town environments, and that simple daily tasks are fully enjoyed and embraced. I think the characters and situations in the book can, however, learn a lot from Madame Chic." I agree. I'd like the book discussion to talk about two things. Number one, how ideas of Madame Chic could help Lucia and Mapp to perhaps enjoy their relationships more and bring more harmony into their towns. And number two, how similar keeping up with the Joneses and shaming scenarios like those in the book, set in a more formal time and country, still occur every day in modern times, in more informal times of the US right now. I think these topics could be quite interesting. Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, so number one, I like that. How the ideas of Madame Chic could help Lucia and Mapp to perhaps enjoy their relationships more. So I was looking through the lens of Madame Chic when I was reading these books for a second time as well. Chapter 20 in Lessons from Madame Chic, the final lesson is to live a passionate life. And that passion spurs from what you are truly interested in, what you truly are passionate about, and also making the mundane things in your life, bringing them up to the level of passion, getting passionate about things that you have to do every single day, whether it's the laundry or the dishes or cleaning the house or whatever it is, just to be passionate about it. And that includes cultivating hobbies and seeking out the arts and all the sort of things that Lucia and co do. However, they do it for the wrong reasons. They are seeking the guru and the Princess Popovsky just to be popular, just to be different, edgy, trendy. And that's something that you see in celebrity culture a lot right now and people who follow them. But the Madame Chic philosophy states, find what you love, and that's okay if it's a quiet art, if it's something that's not trendy, not popular. Find that, be passionate about that, and truly be passionate about it. Don't do things because of other people. Don't follow trends just because they're trendy and when they really are irrelevant to you in your life. So I think that what they could learn from the Madame Chic philosophy is that perhaps when the guru and the Princess Popovsky swept into town, they could just do a heart check and think, okay, am I interested in this, or do I just want to follow along because Lucia and everybody are so interested in this? And if you really truly say, no, this doesn't interest me, and you just take part in what you truly are passionate about instead of following the herd, then that person would not have been burned by the thefts from the guru and things like that from the Princess Popovsky. So to thine own self be true, to quote Shakespeare, and that is, you know, truly the Madame Chic philosophy. The second part of her question was how similar keeping up with the Joneses And shaming scenarios like those in the book still occur in everyday modern times. Yes, keeping up with the Joneses. It's a popular phrase that everyone knows. It's the Joneses are the proverbial neighbor that you're trying to keep up with. We should not covet what other people have. We should not be striving to keep up with other people. Doing so results in many things. It results in, number one, bad finances, because if you're just constantly trying to keep up with the Joneses, usually that results in material things. Spending, overspending, buying too many clothes or handbags or that nice car that you want to impress people with. All of these things that we can fall privy to. And in Miss Mapp and Queen Lucia, there's so much keeping up with the Joneses. And they are wealthy people in these books, so they're not as concerned with financial ruin, but they get ruined in other ways. They have their belongings stolen from them, or they have falling outs with their best friend, like in the case of Miss Mapp and Diva and the dress and everything. Humiliations, things like that tend to happen to them when you are trying to keep up with the Joneses. So today, I think more than ever, with social media and Instagram and Facebook and seeing what everybody's doing, because everybody only posts their best on these social media platforms, right? You have a sense of wanting to keep up with the Joneses. Oh, so-and-so just went on vacation to Hawaii. Well, you know, I want to do that. Or so-and-so just bought a car and posted it on Instagram and I want a nice car. You know, people have that wanting to keep up with the Joneses. And so I say run from that. We should not want what other people have. We should be content with what we do have. And it's okay to strive for more, but to do that in a healthy way and not out of envying or anything like that. Okay, Myrta RG says, I'm reading Queen Lucia and so far I find it really enjoyable. My favorite character is Georgie. He's so fun. Georgie is my favorite character too. I just find him to be very, very funny. Ann Carper writes, some discussion topics. Number one, most people would probably say society was more polite back in Lucia and Miss Mapp's day. If you could bring back one example of good manners from then, what would it be? Are there any ways in which people today are more polite? And number two, if you could have lunch with someone from Rhythm and someone from Tilling, who would you choose and why? Okay, so for the first question, yes, people were definitely more polite back in Lucia and Miss Mapp's day. So if I could bring back one example of good manners, oh my gosh, let's say, that's a good question. If I could bring one example of good manners back, it would be the hospitality that they showed toward each other. And everybody was always going over to somebody's house for lunch or a bridge party or for a cup of tea or to do something. And that is just something that we don't do anymore. It's so funny because we love watching HGTV as a culture and looking at these house shows, and they're always talking about entertaining. Oh, this room would be great for entertaining, or this backyard would be great for entertaining. And we always talk about entertaining, you know, on Pinterest, all these entertaining ideas. But do people actually do entertaining? Because it's very rare when I'm invited over to anybody's house for entertaining. And I get it. It's rare when we invite people over to our homes. We're so busy with our kids all the time. So one thing that I would definitely bring back would be the hospitality of inviting people into your home and the politeness that goes along with that. Are there any ways in which people today are more polite? Let's see. I don't think so. I think that people today are less snobby about class than they were back in Mapp and Lucia's day. So back then, you know, you were labeled according to your class. And that does still go on a bit, but it's not as prevalent right now. And it's more acceptable for people from one quote unquote class to work their way up to a different class. So that is something that I think we're more polite today in that area. And if you could have lunch with someone from Rhythm and someone from Tilling, who would you choose and why? So someone from Rhythm would definitely be Georgie Pilson. He's my favorite and I just think he's really funny. And someone from Tilling, that's a good question. I'd be too afraid to dine with Miss Mapp, so I think I'd probably like to have lunch with the Padre, just to ask him about, you know, everybody in Tilling and all of that. So I would definitely have lunch with Georgie Pilson, and then the other one would be the Padre. Okay, A.L. Octor writes that while I liked Queen Lucia and will be reading Miss Mapp soon, I did have trouble with the main characters always trying to one-up each other. What commentary is being made on 1920s society and how relevant is this and the lessons therein today? I think that we've covered this a lot, but they do try to one-up each other and it's exhausting, which is why you should never try to enter that rat race to begin with. Jenny Enzer writes, I just finished Queen Lucia. I read these a few years ago, but it was really fun to reread this. I thought the whole theme of Lucia being queen, holding court, and her rival queen, Olga, really interesting. I liked how Benson compared them, how Lucia must assert her place as leader of the community, but Olga just draws people to her naturally. Other favorite parts were Daisy constantly being tricked by various spiritual charlatans and Georgie pushed and pulled between two queens. I did notice that as well. Lucia has to work hard to assert herself as queen of the community, and Olga is so infuriating to her because she comes along and just does it naturally. I think she has a natural charisma to her, and because she truly is a celebrity to them as an opera singer, it just comes more naturally to her. Joanna B has a great comment here. She says, I've only finished Queen Lucia. Waiting for Miss Mapp from the library, must be another subscriber ahead of me. E.F. Benson managed to make Lucia a sympathetic character, in spite of her being objectively horrid. She was pretentious, snobby, devious, and self-centered. However, I truly cringed for her when she was put in her place with the string quartet, the faux guru, and the Italian composer. Lucia's entire self-worth is caught up in her status as the artistic leader of a tiny town, and any threat to that status constitutes grounds for social warfare. She thrives as the biggest fish in the tiny pond of Rhythm. However, it is her obsession with being first and best that gets her in the most trouble, which is a lesson for us all. Great observation, Joanna. Okay, Hope Perlman writes, I was discussing these two books with a friend who pointed out that the fake guru episode is based on a real experience. I did not know that. I thought that that was really fun to know. I was also interested by the character's interest in yoga and things Eastern spiritual related, and by the paradox of these British people, whom we often characterize as sensible and having self-restraint, and the famous stiff upper lips, being as susceptible to fads relating to self-improvement as we are today. Yes, I think the self-improvement fad, if you could call it that, is just always there. And you know, the Madame Chic books are, in a sense, self-improvement as well. So I know about that very well. But yes, I think that it was funny to see these people delve into that world when they're two polar opposites basically. Okay, and I got a comment, email from Kirsten, and she wrote a long email, but I'll just read parts of it. She said, hi Jennifer. Okay, she's read all of them many times and delighted that I'm introducing them to new readers. Okay, some possible topics. If you had an independent income, didn't need to work, and had servants for cleaning and cooking, how would your life differ from the lives of Lucia, Miss Mapp, and their friends? Would your interests or hobbies be similar? So I think that that's a great question because these people, they have full-time live-in help. So they, you know, Georgie has full gem, and Lucia, Miss Mapp, everybody has a household maid and a cook, and they don't have to do any of those things that we all have to do. So, and not only that, but they don't also have children too. So that's why their time is so free, and that's probably why they get into so much trouble, to be quite honest. If you have all of this free time, you don't need to do anything. So they don't work, they don't clean their house, they don't cook, they don't have children. What do you do? So they basically socialize and they get involved in all of these things. So it's hard to put myself in that frame of mind. So I'm trying to think if I didn't work and if I didn't have children and if I didn't have to do anything in my house, what would I do? I would probably, I would still probably write, which is considered work. So I guess I would cultivate hobbies, and I would try to get involved in local organizations. I would try to do more charity work. I don't think we really see that here. You know, Miss Mapp hoards all the food and then she claims that she's going to give it away, but you don't really see that. So I think I'd like to think that I would try to get involved in helping other people more. But yes, they do have a lot of time on their hands. Thank you so much for joining me for the Mapp and Lucia book club. I hope that you enjoyed it. We will most likely continue this book club. Not anytime soon though. I want you to think more mid to late fall. So we will continue the next two books, which are Lucia in London, and then my absolute favorite, Mapp and Lucia. We have got to get to that book. So you have tons of time to read them, but go ahead and put them on your reading list now if you'd like to continue the book club with me. Thank you so much for joining me on the Daily Connoisseur, and I will sign off with Au reservoir. Bye.